Pablo Antonio Amin is from Argentina and would later be dubbed Pablo El Loco Amin for what happened the night he brutally murdered his wife, Maria Marta Arias. Pablo met his wife while they were in school. In 2005, he had weighed approximately 350 pounds and was 6'5". He decided that he wanted to lose weight, which is where he turned to Herbalife. Herbalife is a health and wellness multi-level marketing company. With the success of him losing almost 90 pounds, he decided that he just had to start an Herbalife business to sell this miracle product. In 2007, Pablo and Maria had already been married for 3 months when they went to an Herbalife convention. Things quickly went downhill, and unfortunately, Maria lost her life that night at the hands of her husband. This is the chilling case of Pablo El Loco Amin. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Monica. I like to post anti-MLM life and some true crime content here on this channel. So if any of that interests you, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to stick around. In today's video, I am bringing you another one of my anti-MLM true crime hybrid kind of videos. If this is of interest to you, I do have an entire playlist dedicated to those specific topics together. This particular case was brought to my attention by one of you, and it is the case of Pablo Antonio Amin, and he would later be dubbed Pablo El Loco Amin. And the reason why I wanted to cover it is because he was an Herbalife distributor, so of course it links back to my anti-MLM content. So thank you so much for letting me know about that. Shout out to Kat Benson from Unlock Nutrition for becoming a patron. Thank you so much. That is just thank you. And thank you to everyone who always watches my videos for free. It really truly means a lot. But I am going to say that I encourage everyone to do their own research regarding this case, especially, I mean, I say that in all of my videos, but this one in particular because it did happen in Argentina. And let me just tell you, Google Translate is not the best thing at all times. Sometimes it translates a little iffy, and we all know that, but I did just want to say that I did do the best that I could, but I'm sure certain things did get lost in translation. With this being a true crime video, I do have to issue a warning because this particular case is very heinous and just, it's terrible. So, warning, the following presentation is intended for mature audiences. It contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, and trust me when I say there are some pretty gory details in this one, so proceed with caution, adult dialogue, and adult language. Viewer discretion is advised. Also, I look different from the thumbnail because I already filmed and edited this video before, but I didn't like it, so I refilmed it and I'm going to re-edit it. Not that you guys care, but just letting you know in case you're wondering. Without further ado, let's get into this case. So who was Pablo Amin? He was born in 1983 in Tucumán, Argentina. When he was younger, he would end up taking an English class where he would meet his future wife, Maria Marta Arias. And it has been said that Maria was a very quiet girl and she just kind of kept to herself. So I did just want to mention that she was just, I don't know if she was necessarily shy, but she was just very quiet. The two of them would meet again years later when Maria was studying economic sciences. Unfortunately, between the ages of 16 to 21, Pablo was struggling with an addiction. With all this going on, Maria and Pablo would start dating. It has been said that Maria's brothers were not huge fans of Pablo. I couldn't find exactly why, but they just were not friends of him in general. This did not faze Pablo. He did not care. He continued to date Maria. In 2005, Pablo weighed approximately 353 pounds at 6'5". And now I say approximately because I did have to convert it from kilos and meters to pounds and feet, inches. So that's why I'm saying approximate. And he would set out to lose weight, and his mindset was he just wanted to be healthier and things of that nature. The way that he would do this is he would start using Herbalife products. If you don't know what Herbalife is, it's a health and wellness MLM company, and MLM, of course, stands for multi-level marketing. These types of companies or business structures are commonly compared to pyramid schemes, sometimes even called product-based pyramid schemes.
You're going to explain that little pyramid scheme thing that you almost got terminated for last year, you're now an entrepreneur and you're going to be doing that full time.
While yes, pyramid schemes are illegal, MLM companies have found this loophole of selling a product. We all see that the focus is mostly on recruitment, if not always on recruitment. And my counter to that argument by MLM reps is always, well, drugs are illegal, so is murder, along with going over the speed limit, and these things happen on an everyday basis. If you watched my Tori Bell training video recently, in that video I talked about how if you recruit people, you'll make more money than someone who is amazing at selling the products. This was demonstrated to us by the MLM upline. They've had plenty of lawsuits, one of which involved the FTC suing Herbalife, and this would lead to them refunding some distributors. Another one was a woman who sued for fraud and negligence due to some health issues that she allegedly encountered while using Herbalife products. However, they would settle and Herbalife assumed no liability. There is a great documentary on Netflix called Betting on Zero that shows how this particular MLM company preys on people, both minorities and just people in very vulnerable states. We see that this is a commonly used tactic by MLM companies. Even with this documentary on Netflix, a lot of the tactics that MLMs use, or MLM reps use as well, they're all very, very similar. And like I said, they prey on vulnerable people. A lot of times you'll hear MLM reps say that I got out of my credit card debt. I was able to buy a new house. I was able to buy a new car. I was able to retire my husband. These are very, very commonly known things in the anti-MLM community that we see just all the time. Sometimes some of these reps will even say that it changed my life for the better and my MLM saved me and all of these types of things. Now, I can attest to this a little bit because when I was in Beachbody, I did all of my really long, annoying posts that you see on Facebook all the time. A lot of times what I said in those was I felt really terrible health-wise before and now I took care of my health, so now I feel better and blah, 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 blah. But we know that this is just a tactic. And while, yes, I genuinely wanted people to feel better the way that I felt after I started Beachbody, but I mean, it's a tactic for most of these MLM reps. You're told to sell a dream, and this, whether it be a dream lifestyle or being able to pay off debt, student loans, whatever the case may be, and you're also told to fake it till you make it. We know in the anti-MLM community that income claims and lifestyle claims need to be reported to the FTC. These are not allowed. We do see it all the time. And along with that, a lot of these reps, no doesn't mean no, it just means not right now. That was drilled into my head when I was in Beachbody. And this was one of the red flags for me of me wanting to not be like the other MLM reps, but at the same time, it was a red flag for me to just think about it. And at that point, it was a lot of things that were happening, and I just didn't want to be part of the MLM anymore. MLM reps are always targeting moms, whether it be stay-at-home moms, career-driven moms, and they'll even mom shame sometimes. They target military spouses, people who have chronic illnesses, and the list just keeps going on and on and on. I could literally keep going. There's another reason why MLMs are compared to cults. If you want to do more research on this particular topic, I highly recommend looking into the BITE model by Stephen Hassan. Not everything on the BITE model is going to apply to MLMs, but they have been called commercial cults before, and there is a reason for that. So I highly recommend, if you're more interested in that topic, to go ahead and research the bite model. Anyway, back to Pablo, because I have rambled about MLMs quite a bit already. After he started his weight loss journey and after he started using Herbalife, he lost 88 pounds approximately within 4 months. This convinced him that this product was a miracle product and that it was incredibly effective. So, with that being said, of course, this led to him becoming an Herbalife distributor. It's been said that when he became a distributor, he was very passionate about it, and Herbalife was just his whole entire life. Blood, sweat, and tears went into his Herbalife business, and his life just revolved around Herbalife. Well, let's fast forward to July of 2007. This is when Pablo and Maria would get married in a church in Santiago. There would be trouble in paradise. The reason why is because Maria took some nude photos of herself, and it was never known who took them. They didn't know if it was Pablo, if it was Maria, or if it was another third party. But it gets worse. Somehow, these photos were leaked via email to a bunch of Pablo's friends. So I can see why he would be upset about it, because all of the sudden, your friends have nude photos of your wife. So I can see why he would get upset about it and why that would maybe just kind of put a little bit of strain on their relationship, or I mean a lot of strain. It depends on what kind of a person you are, I guess you can say it that way. But then in October 27th of 2007 to be exact, this is when Pablo and Maria checked into a hotel called the Catalinas Park Hotel, which was located in front of 9 de Julio Park, which was in Tucumán, Argentina. Also, just quick note, I am so sorry if I'm butchering these names. I am trying very, very hard. The two of them would get room 514, which was on the 5th floor. This is important to remember for later. Apparently, Maria didn't want to go, and we're going to go over why they checked into this hotel, but Maria didn't want to go, and this was all Pablo's idea. You want to know why? An Herbalife conference. Yes, they went to an Herbalife conference. We all know what these conferences are like. We know that a lot of these things are very big deals for these MLM reps, and I mean, I can speak from experience that when I was in Beachbody, my goal was to be able to go to Summit, which is the Beachbody convention. It's a big deal. It's very extravagant. If you look at any videos of these conventions, they're very big. And there was one video that I watched of a recent Herbalife one. They had people out on stage singing. Katy Perry has spoken at one of these conferences before, and Rachel Hollis, which we all know in the anti-MLM community. A lot of people, there's been a lot of chit chat about her lately, but even Rachel has spoken at these conferences. There are a lot of self-help gurus who are supposed to help people in their multi-level marketing or network marketing businesses, and usually these conventions are literally no joke. They're just, they put on a show, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Things took a little bit of a turn once they made it to the convention, and Pablo was going to prepare a smoothie. And a lot of people in the surrounding area said that they saw Pablo just started sweating out of nowhere, and that it was like sweat was just dripping off of him, and it looked weird. At about noontime is when Pablo began to scream, and he had his fists up in the air like he was ready to fight someone. And the reason why he wanted to fight was because of another Herbalife distributor who was not at this particular conference by the name of Louis Bader. And this was because Pablo believed that Louis was just stealing his Herbalife clients. After all this was happening, Maria decided to come to her husband's side and try to help him calm down, let him know that this particular distributor isn't even here, so you need to calm down, you need to collect yourself. And that's when they went outside. Pablo said that when they went outside is when he heard an inner voice that said, "Pablo, run, they are going to kill you." So him and Maria started, I don't know if it was, because I couldn't find this, so I don't know if it was because he was terrified and they were going around the city or what the case was, but for about 2 hours, they were jumping from different public transportation. They would take a taxi, they would take a bus, and it was just kind of all over the place. Once all of this, within these 2 hours, they ended up in front of a church that was about 3 blocks away, and this was in front of a plaza. I'll pop up the name of the plaza because there's absolutely no way that I'm going to be able to say that name without butchering it. So by this point in time, it was 5:15 p.m. Pablo and Maria walked into the church that they were in front of. When they walked into the church, they saw that there was a baptism that was happening. Pablo interrupted the priest, and he said that the priest had to bless the union of his and Maria's marriage to each other, and he was very, very, very adamant on the priest doing it right then and there. The priest did bless them, but he still thought that he was just very surprised at the whole entire situation. And people who were at the church would say that something that they found that was very weird is Pablo, after all of this was happening, he took the pitcher of holy water and drank the entire thing. He just drank the entire thing, and I would think that was kind of odd, because I would think it was odd. However, the priest said that when he looked into Pablo's eyes, he just looked lost and just very, very confused. The priest did say, along with the other things that I just talked about, that Pablo seemed to be in some kind of a hurry. So with all of that being said, Maria stayed at the church, and she was just bawling her eyes out, and she was trying to get in contact with some of their friends so that they could possibly calm him down or just get him back to the hotel and maybe even go to the hospital or something like that to see what's going on. Pablo ran into traffic, oncoming traffic, and the way that it was explained to me was that this was a traffic circle. So even though he ran into traffic, he would run into the middle of this traffic circle, and people said that he was just screaming at the top of his lungs, saying that they're going to kill him, and it was almost as if he was having like some kind of episode or whatever the case may be. I'm not a licensed professional, so I don't even know what this would be called. As I said before, Maria would stay at the church and call a bunch of her friends to see if maybe they can help her, because at this point she was terrified of her husband's behavior. Whereas Pablo decided to roam the streets by himself. He eventually ended up stumbling upon an officer whose name was Sergio Santander. This officer said that he just looked very lost and confused. So of course, because of Pablo's strange behavior, the officer started asking him, "Do you know where you are? Why are you here? Do you know what your name is?" And because of the inconsistent responses that he was getting from Pablo, he took Pablo to the station. This is where they would ask him, "Do you have someone that we can call?" And he said that he didn't want them to call his wife because his wife didn't love him anymore, and his wife was trying to take him away from his friends and family. Pablo said that he didn't trust anybody. So of course his behavior was a little strange, and they kept him at the police station. Even with all of this, the police officers were able to get in contact with Maria. Maria would end up coming to the station with one of their friends who was named Walter Cancino. And this person, Walter, he was an Herbalife distributor, and he was at this conference as well with his wife, and they were all mutual friends. That's when Walter would ask Pablo, "Where did you park the car so that he can go look for it?" And Pablo handed him a piece of paper. This piece of paper had the address, just like if you go to any parking area, they usually, I mean, not all the time, but sometimes they'll give you a paper where it has the name of the parking garage or the location. Pablo had a request for Walter. he had asked him if when he goes to the car, if he could bring back a container of Herbalife products, because he started ranting and raving about how these Herbalife products are amazing and how much weight he lost, how many people that he knows takes these products, and just kept on pitching them, which a lot of the officers found very strange, because he's having this weird behavior, but all of a sudden it's like a switch and he's pitching Herbalife. This is where his name Pablo El Loco Amin came from, because his behavior was something that was just baffling to the officers. It would be baffling to me as well. Now it's approximately 8 p.m. This is when the head of the police department, I guess he was observing Pablo, and he wanted to talk to the wife, Maria, and his friend. This particular officer, his name was Luis Roberto Ibanez, and this officer started asking questions as to why Pablo went from being almost delusional to suddenly pitching Herbalife. He said that it seemed like Pablo was drugged, and that just something about his tone of voice was disturbing to him. And he suggested that they go to the hospital, and of course, Pablo's response to this was, "No, I'm not going to the hospital because they're going to drug me there." But eventually, they were able to get Pablo into one of the cars. The police put him in a car, and he was escorted to the hospital by 2 police officers, while Maria and Walter followed behind in Pablo's car. They arrived at Padilla Hospital, and by 9 p.m. is when Pablo was finally examined by a neurologist. This particular neurologist told them that there's nothing wrong with Pablo. His test came back completely fine, and he's free to go. Before Pablo left the hospital, he somehow stole a scalpel and hid it in his clothing. Pablo told his wife that once they get back to the hotel and once they're kind of relaxed and settled, that he's going to tell her why he gets like this and why he was acting the way that he was acting. They finally arrived at the hotel, and their friend Walter told Pablo and Maria that his wife was waiting for him at the bar, so he was going to meet his wife there for a couple of drinks. Walter asked Pablo, "Are you sure that you're okay?" Because he was just concerned. I mean, I would be concerned for my friend if he was acting that way too. And Pablo told him, "I'm completely fine. The only thing is that I haven't slept in 4 days." So that was, of course, a little bit concerning, but they didn't think anything of it, because Pablo and Maria ended up going into the elevator and they would go into their room. Once they got into their hotel room, they got ready for bed, and they did go to bed naked. Maria was laying with her back towards Pablo, and this is when Pablo started asking her a few questions. Pablo asked Maria why it took her so long to get to the police station when they called her, and she responded with the fact that even the police officers were saying that Pablo kept talking about how he didn't want to see his wife. And Pablo didn't believe this. I guess he thought that she was lying, and I guess he thought that that he forgot that he said these things at the police station. Then he went on to ask, "Why did you and Walter take so long to get to the hospital?" And she responded with, "We were trying to figure out if we should bring you to a psychiatric hospital, that maybe you needed a psychiatric evaluation. We were very, very worried about you." And this is when Pablo became incredibly furious at this point, and he immediately jumped on top of Maria and started strangling her to the point where she passed out. She was not dead at this point, she just passed out. Remember the scalpel that I talked about that he stole from the hospital? Well, he grabbed it, and this is when the details of this get kind of gory. He cut her eyes out, and once he cut her eyes out, he placed them on the bed as if it was just like I'm just gonna put this right here, like it was no big deal. He did cut her in other parts on her body, so places like her forehead and her chest, but this was not the worst of it. He would go on to mutilate her genitals and her anus. Now remember, she's still alive at this point, but he strangled her until she passed out. This wasn't it though. This wasn't it. He grabbed her by the hair and started pulling her out of their hotel room, room 514. While he was pulling her to the elevator, because he pressed the elevator button, and then he started banging on room 513, but of course he left bloodstains on the door because of what he did. Later on, hotel guests would go on to say that they never heard any screaming, they never heard any kind of distress coming from room 514, and that they just never heard anything. Hey guys, Editing Monica here. My camera cut out, and it cut out a small little portion of when I was talking about this particular part in the case. After Pablo had left the blood stain on room 513, I will pop up a graphic. When I found it, it was very pixelated, but this is the best that I could do to show you guys a visual representation of what had happened. But Pablo had dragged Maria down the stairs. At one point, he threw her down the stairs and there was blood splatter everywhere. So he did this until, of course, someone saw the blood trails and the blood stains and called the front desk. Police arrived within 3 minutes after being called. Before this happened, though, there was a hotel employee who stumbled upon Pablo and Maria. This hotel employee would say that when they saw Pablo, he was hovering over his wife and slamming her head into the floor constantly. Pablo would let out a yell of some sort, and he started saying that he killed his wife, but that this is the work of the devil, and just being very delirious. When police arrived on the scene, Maria was already dead, and police said that when they saw Pablo, he started screaming that he needs water and that he's crazy and he needs water because his ring is stuck in his throat because he swallowed his ring along with the elevator wasn't working. Police told him to get on the ground and he would eventually be in police custody. Once they finally got Pablo into police custody, they took him to the hospital where doctors would give him more than one sedative. But it was said that he was still yelling and screaming and saying things even with these sedatives. So they started to investigate the scene of the crime. They could not find the scalpel anywhere. They have no idea what he did with it because he couldn't have flushed it down the toilet in the hotel room because there was no blood anywhere in the hotel room. They weren't sure if maybe he threw it out a window and it ended up being buried somewhere or hidden and they just couldn't find it. But they were not able to find the scalpel. Pablo was brought to a psychiatric hospital that was called Oberrio Psychiatric Hospital, and this is where he would remain sedated and in police custody until the judge decided that he was able to be brought to jail. During his stay at this psychiatric hospital, Pablo was reading the Bible. Yes, you heard that right. He was reading the Bible. When Pablo was finally brought to trial, from what I read, and this is, again, translation might have been a little off, but from what the translation said, when he was at his trial, when he was being questioned, his responses were very inconsistent. It almost seemed as though he was speaking a lot of gibberish and he was almost making up stories. The motive for why Pablo brutally murdered his wife was never known. They could not figure out why he did this, and it's just so sad to think about. But there were a few theories. There were theories that were saying that maybe he was that upset about the nude photos that I talked about in the beginning of this video. Others said that maybe there was some kind of infidelity going on that some of their friends didn't know about. There were also some theories that said that Pablo and Maria were very competitive against each other with their Herbalife business, and that at one point they ended up turning into rivals, and that the competition became kind of unhealthy to the point where they would become enemies. So this was another one of their theories. On September 22nd of 2009, Pablo Amin was sentenced to life in prison at a maximum security prison, along with 25 of the most dangerous criminals in Argentina. But wait, there's more. Pablo remarried while he was in prison. Not too long after he was sentenced to life in prison, he met a woman who was visiting him while he was in prison. She would visit him all the time, and they got to know each other to the point where he had asked her to marry him. This particular woman was very well aware of what Pablo had did, but she did not care. Here's something that I wanted to mention, and this is nothing new because we see this all the time where a lot of murderers or serial killers, they have fan clubs, they have fangirls. One of the most common examples is Ted Bundy. There are people out there that defend Ted Bundy, that are infatuated or even maybe, dare I say, in love with Ted Bundy. And then we have someone, if you want to talk about a more modern person, Chris Watts. There are people that are out there and they defend his actions, or they say, don't come for him because he's not what people think and he's so good looking and blah, 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 blah. But you're just going to completely disregard what he did to Shanann, his wife, his pregnant wife, may I add, and his 2 daughters. Okay, because that makes sense. And as Bailey Sarian would say, get better idols. Please get better idols. That is the end of this particular case, and I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. If there's anything that you would like to add, or if there's anything that I didn't cover, please put it in the comment section below. I was not able to find, and maybe I didn't dig far enough, but I was not able to find if Pablo was ever diagnosed with some kind of mental illness. So I'm sure that he does have one. Again, I'm not certified, but from his actions and what he did, it's a little hard for me to believe that he didn't have some kind of issue. But I do hope that Maria is resting in peace, and I do hope that her family is doing as good as they can possibly be doing. This was a really intense crime, and I feel like I say that about a lot of the true crime cases that I cover, but maybe it's just because I will never understand how someone can do something like that to a loved one. And I can't wrap my head around it. And that's why I'm always very interested to know about the psychology behind a lot of serial killers or murderers. And I do my own research on the side that I don't put in videos because I just do it for fun. I mean, that sounds really bad that I do it for fun, but I do it as just like a side thing. Whenever I'm curious, I'll look it up. But anyway, I've rambled too much. If you have watched up to here, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. This is Monica reporting to you live from a highway. Bye.